Peace, Israel, and Yah bless. Thy righteousness is an everlasting righteousness, and thy law is the truth. I'd like to title this short segment, Anchored by the Law. Once again, I'd like to title this short segment, Anchored by the Law. Now, I encourage everyone to read the book of the law and the prophets from Genesis to Malachi each and every day. I mean, sometimes I know that you can be on the time constraints and you may not be able to read a full chapter. But if you are to read a paragraph, if you're to read a page, and if you do have the time to read a chapter, I encourage you to read this book each and every day. Why is that important? Now, on a daily basis, you're being bombarded with doses and doses of wickedness. From the time you turn on your TV, you have all types of homosexual commercials on the TV, all types of mixed couples commercials on the TV. It's just a bunch of madness going on out here. If you're not seeing it on the TV, you're seeing it in person, where wickedness has become the norm in the midst of these nations. Not only are they bombarding the adults with this type of behavior, they're also doing it to the children at a very young age with the kindergarten books and what they're pushing in the kindergarten and the K-5 and places like that, where the children are very young and may not know the difference between what is right, righteous, and that which is wrong, wicked. So in the midst of these nations, there is a sea of wickedness, and the current is becoming stronger each and every day. Now, what the law does, at least for me, and it certainly will be for you, it is an anchor in this sea of wickedness. For if you do not have an anchor, these currents of wickedness will drag you away into places that you should not be, ought not to be, and will not be if you are to hold steadfast to this law. So in order to remain rooted, in order to remain grounded, it's imperative that you read each and every day to remind you of exactly what your conduct ought to be, and that you're not to become accepting of unrighteous, foolish behavior that you may see being pushed on your TV, and you're surrounded by, if you're surrounded by people, and most of us are, chances are, of all the people that you know in your immediate vicinity, you may be the only one that's walking in Torah. You may be the only one that's observing the Most High's laws, statutes, judgments, and precepts. So therefore, you are an island in the midst of wickedness. And do understand that as a light bearer, because the law is light, and so therefore the people around you are in darkness. So you are to be that example, number one, and you're certainly to make sure that your anchor is deep, for the simple fact that if you don't, you can easily become persuaded by those wicked men and women around you, and before you know it, you begin to participate in wickedness, and then the Most High turns his face against you and against your house. So keep in mind that your righteousness is only good while you're doing it. For if you were to turn your back on the Most High's law and chuck it behind your back, then all of a sudden, all of your righteousness has been forgotten. And you will be dealt with in the manner that you're supposed to be dealt with once you decide to turn away from righteousness and start going after the ways of wickedness, wicked men, wicked people, etc. So, remain anchored in the Most High's law. It is a righteous thing to do, and in these times it becomes imperative. As you can see, in the midst of the earth, you're seeing all the different types of upheaval. And what you're seeing is, once again, you're seeing people seeking righteousness, they're seeking equity, they're seeking justice, and they're uprising against wrongdoing, so to speak. So remain anchored in that law. Now, a very major part of that is keeping the Most High's Sabbath day. If you are new and you're now beginning to understand that you are the house of Israel, and if you are a stranger that has been caught up in white supremacy, aka Christianity, and you have been led astray, and you were told that someone died for you, etc., etc., as you come into this law, you begin to understand that keeping the Most High Sabbath is important. That Sabbath is a set apart day. It is a day of rest. It's a day where you're to be with every man is to remain within his dwelling place on the Sabbath day. And there are rules specifically laid out for your conduct on the Sabbath day. Now, once you begin to keep the Sabbath day, you begin to realize exactly how tired you really are on the day-to-day struggle, on the day-to-day treadmill of work, especially here in the West. So, if you're not keeping the Most High Sabbath day, you should and you must. If you're an employer at a major company, you simply have to write up a formal letter and take it into your HR department, and they will honor it. There is no choice. They must do it based on law. So all of the provisions have been laid out for you by which you can keep the Most High Sabbath day. Now, should you petition your HR department and your company, and they actually acknowledge this, and you're granted this accommodation, should you decide, you're going to come out of your house and you're going to go to football games and basketball games and all these other foolishness, and you will be granted the Sabbath day and you will violate it, do understand there will be consequences for that, and the Most High will see to your punishment should you do this. However, for those of you who are doing it, I'm certain that you can see the benefits of doing it. And those of you who are seeking to do it, once you do and go through the formalities and you begin to rest on the Sabbath day, you will realize how important that day is as far as just recharging you and getting you separated from that sea of wickedness for a full 24-hour period where you can rest, where you can meditate, where you can fast, where you can focus on the Most High's laws, statutes, judgments, and precepts. It's pretty much a withdrawal moment to where you can actually recenter yourself around the Most High and His Word, and that we may clearly understand what our purpose is. And our purpose simply is to serve Him, regardless of our nation. So let's not get caught up in the racial mess. At the end of the day, everyone's purpose is to serve the Most High. And those who refuse to serve Him, irregardless of their nation, they will be uprooted from the earth. So, in closing, to the children of Israel scattered to the four corners of the earth, and to the stranger that is of a contrite spirit that will cleave unto the Most High's covenant. Your purpose is to serve the Most High. But meanwhile, in the midst of these many nations, surrounded by liars, surrounded by hypocrites, surrounded by idolaters, surrounded by adulterers, murderers, thieves, and liars, etc., we are in a sea of wickedness, and the current is getting stronger each and every day. In order not to be swept away in the sea of this wickedness, you are to remain anchored in the Most High's righteousness. And one way to do that is by way of His laws, statutes, judgments, and precepts, by reading a bit of it each and every day. The Most High did tell the children of Israel that even though we are in the midst of these nations under punishment for disobeying the Most High's word, He says, yet He will be a sanctuary in the midst of us. And that sanctuary that has been left in the midst of us, that we may reconcile ourselves back unto Him, is His word. It is those laws, those statutes, those judgments, and those precepts. So in order for us to stop this punishment that we're going through and have the Most High show us some form of favor, we are to use that sanctuary. We are to use the extension of His mercy, and that is His laws, statutes, judgments, and precepts. So we are to read it, that we may remain anchored. Secondly, as you begin to do the laws, you begin to teach it, and your light begins to shine. There are those that are in darkness that are going to seek after the Most High. And when they find out that you are a man or a woman that walks after the Most High's laws, statutes, judgments, and precepts, they may have some questions for you. That's one. You cannot teach that which you do not know. So, as a light bearer, by reading each and every day, not only does it keep you well anchored in righteousness, but it also allows you and gives you the ability to help those who are seeking the path. So, What you're learning and that which you're doing is not only for your sake, it's for those around you who may seek after the Most High's righteousness and may have some questions. And there are those who are in total opposition to the Most High's laws, statutes, judgments, and precepts who may just want to ask you questions just to see if they can trip you up, etc. However, that becomes very difficult to do if you are well versed, you are well learned, and you are well anchored. Thy righteousness is an everlasting righteousness, and thy law is the truth. Peace to the house of Israel, and peace to the stranger that will take a hold of the Most High's laws, statutes, judgments, and precepts, and will do them. Continue to remain anchored in that law. Even if you have to read one paragraph a day, it is your anchor in this sea of wickedness. Peace, and Yah bless.